you please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Before we call roll, would you please turn off your cell phones or silence them so they will not disrupt the meeting? And Krista, will you call roll?
Heidi Larson. Here. Gary Kepley.
Here.
Ashley Overton. Here. Susan Braun.
Yes.
John Hedges.
Here.
Erica Weaver.
Erica will be here in a few minutes.
Michelle Skidmore.
Here. Our first item is 2.1 under agenda. Visitors, we have recognition of birth to 3 program as Baby Talk, designated quality confirmed program at Franklin Preschool. Katrina Ferris, our early childhood director, will be speaking. Come on up.
You need the microphone?
Yeah, she's a
junior. I can talk loud enough.
Hi, so the Birth to 3 program recently became quality confirmed, and it is the highest level of achievement that you can get in this grant type program. So how to become quality confirmed is you have to have a high quality program. You are monitored for well over a month. Baby Talk comes in and they come and evaluate our program, our parent education events, our evening events, how we, do our home visits, how we connect families to resources. One of our highest achievements is having a big collaboration with community resources and connecting families to that. Another thing they do is just review all of our files and what we do. One of the biggest accomplishments we have, if you would, there's our certificate. If you go on to, this is us working, this is like going through a staff meeting. We meet weekly, go over our family's files, what their needs are, and how we can best help meet those needs. And then the next slide, this is a picture of our lending library. No other program has one like it. This is open to the community, and in there is resources for parents, parent library, children's books, backpacks that they can take home, just a wealth of resources. There's computers, families come in and do their college work on resumes, you name it. They're able to come in and do this, be connected to resources as well as having a safe place for their children to play. So we just wanted to let the community know that the Birth to 3 program has been quality confirmed. So thank you.
Okay, we move on to non-agenda visitors. I have a stack of people who wish to speak. The time limit is 3 minutes per each person. Please use professionalism and respect. Also note that under item 4, the board will also be discussing this. So we'll start with Todd Ferris. Would you like the microphone, Todd?
Let me bring it to you.
Todd, I'll let you know if you're going to get 3 minutes. Thank you.
I'll try not to take that long. About 6 months ago, I stood before the board and I implored you to not mandate face coverings or any other mandates for our students and our teachers. About a week and a half later, the governor intervened and took it out of your hands. It's back in your hands again by this TRO. It's back in your hands again. I implore the board again. Bring it back to the local level. Let due process reign. Let the rule of law reign. Allow me to make decisions for my children that I deem to be safe. Don't allow Springfield or or any other larger government entity to make decisions that need to be made on the local level. We are past the point where this needs to happen any longer. Okay? The due process needs to be for any kind of quarantine, that should be on the local level. That should be not Springfield handing down dictates. That's not how the United States works. That's not what subsidiarity is, which is the doctrine that the family is the single cell of the government or of the society, and every other government entity beyond that should be geared towards uplifting and upholding the family unit. That's what I'm asking you to do. Bring it back home. I also want to address the fact that it was confirmed to me by an administrator that there was a teacher that was coercing children at Williams with candy to get them to wear masks. I'm assuming that this child or children that were being coerced were told by their children to not wear masks. This teacher does not need to be in the classroom at this point in time. As a parent, it's disturbing and detestable to me to directly countermand the wishes and will of the parents, especially in such a, forgive my, just a creepy way. That's creepy. To bribe children with candy, to do anything. I tell my children to not take candy from anyone, strangers, and now they have teachers trying to coerce them with candy to put a face covering on. That's unacceptable. And I was told by the administrator that it was being taken care of. I believe that. But in my opinion, the teacher needs to be removed from the classroom. Whether temporarily or permanently, I don't really know. I don't know what kind of investigation process has to go on, but I implore the board to do that as well. Thank you very much.
Next is Brandon Crozier. I hope I said that right. Brandon?
I'll come to you here.
Hey guys, my name's Brandon Crozier. I'm not from Mattoon. My wife is. I know about 2 people in this building. But all of you have the right to make decisions for your family, for your children, and you do want the well-being of teachers, of other kids, and I want that as well. Like I said, I don't know anybody, but I wish everybody health, safety, and all that. Main thing is, we have a choice, and they have a choice now. And hopefully that they can make one where we take care of our kids, whether it's medical, anything else, we feed them, we give them everything. We should be able to make a decision where they wear a mask or not. Like the gentleman said earlier about the origin of candy. Come on, guys. We've been told for a long time that trick doesn't work or shouldn't work. I had a discussion with my child last night, Brantley, 6-year-old at Williams, about the mask and why they wanted to wear them. Talked about that. We talked about the choice of that. He started crying and telling me that he would get in trouble if he did not wear a mask. Now, what 6-year-old would know that he would be getting in trouble over a facial mask? We go bowling every weekend, don't wear a mask. Go to Rural King every weekend, don't wear a mask. Go to church, don't wear a mask. Imagine if my kid is scared to wear a mask, not wear a mask in school. 2 places really should be the safe most of that: home and at school. And we pay a lot of money to send our kids to this school and to be protected when we're not there. It should be the second safest place there is. And with actions that of teachers, of a teacher, maybe multiple, I'm not sure that is the safest place. These guys have a hard decision to make, and a lot of things in the school. Hopefully this isn't a hard one for them tonight. I don't know what else to say other than parents should have a choice. We respect every one of you guys, and we want the best for everyone's children. We want you guys to have to say, or I do, my wife does. My wife's lived in Mattoon her whole life, went to school here. She loves this place. I kind of like it. So we want the best for our kids, and that's what your guys are, ours, teachers, administration. It's a hard time, but give us the choice back, and that's all I'm asking for.
Angela Hampton.
Hi, good evening. I'm Angela Hampton. I have 3 daughters in the school district, and I'm also one of the parents named in the TRO. And I can tell you that we did not want to file a restraining order against our children's school district. For the last year, we've asked you to think win-win, to synergize, to be proactive, and to seek to understand our perspective, and you've declined at every turn. The millions of dollars being poured into our district are not a blessing, they're a bribe. The money has caused you to bully the people you serve because the government and unions have bullied you, and that's how intimidation works. It's passed down from people in power to people in control to the weakest links who are now our children. Like the teacher's aide who screamed down the hallway, "This job pays my bills and I'm not going to let you take that away from me because of a mask." Or the group lectures where students are told that they are responsible for making their friends sick. Or the elementary school teacher who's bribed students with candy to put their mask on this week. What kind of twisted logic tells someone that it's okay to blame a child for a virus or bribe them to do something against their parents' wishes? I wonder how many of you spoke in front of this board before you were elected or even attended these meetings. If you have, you would know that it's scary and it's intimidating. And if all you've done is sit there and say "I" a few times a month, you have no idea what the last year has been like for those of us who have sat here and advocated for our children. Every time I get up here, I weigh my words carefully for days to make sure that I'm only sharing truth and facts. But I've been mocked by the president in front of a room full of people for creating conflict. Erica has insulted my parenting directly to my daughter's face. And when John dismissed my concerns as unimportant and untrue on social media, the district shared his post on their Facebook page. It's no wonder more parents don't want to stand up here and share their concerns when the people that they elected to protect their children are behaving like children themselves. It's my job as a mother who wants her children to grow up in a free society that does not fear its elected officials to stand here and hold you accountable. Your job, according to the IASB, the job you volunteered for, is to provide local citizen control over education at a point as close to the parent and child as possible. You leave this room, you take your mask off and enjoy dinner in restaurants and taxpayer-funded trips out of state, and then make us out to be public enemy number 1. But you would not sit here if it weren't for us. We're not your enemies, but we are done making excuses for your hypocrisy. You don't own our children, you don't own their bodies, so we're asking you to start doing what we elected you to do, or step down and let someone else do it.
Stacy Harmonson.
Stacy.
Stacy Harmonson.
My name is Stacy Hermanson. We have 2 children currently at the high school, and we are also a part of the lawsuit that was brought against the Mattoon School District. So I just want to share that the closest statistics that I can get as about 6:30 tonight is that 249 school districts in Illinois have made masks optional. That's 29% of the total number of school districts in Illinois. Only 145 districts were included in our lawsuit. So these districts are seeing the writing on the wall, and they are understanding what this judge has said and what this means to our schools. And so they know that this is not allowing kids due process, and they understand that that's illegal. And the judge even called the actions evil that the governor is bringing down. So if they've chosen to make these decisions without being forced to by the temporary restraining order, why, school board, would you, as representatives of the Mattoon School District, who is included in this lawsuit, Why would you make the choice to continue with illegal actions against our children? It makes no sense to me. Our children, just because they're young, doesn't mean they don't get due process just like the rest of us. And in today's world, our children need to be taught what's right and wrong, and be taught what law is and what law is not. And a mandate is not a law, and we, as their parents, are standing up and saying, we're the ones in charge of them. We're the ones who make the decisions for them, not the governor, not the school board. And so I just want to ask you first and foremost, and I know I won't get an answer to this, but if the reason that the decision came out to the email to the parents, if that decision was made because of money, if that decision was made because of political pressure, just fess it up and say it. We can understand there's a lot of pressure from a governor who is a very tyrannical man. We can understand that. What we can't understand is when you sit here and you tell us you just want the best interest for our kids. Sorry, I'm their parent. I'm the one who wants the best interest for my kid. I don't care what you want. You can never want their best interest as much as I do. And then I would just like to tag on to Angela's part two. I've been real disappointed. We've come to a lot of school board meetings in the last year because of all of this. And I've been real disappointed with my school board. And I'm upset with myself for not being involved more earlier because my kids are in high school. But it's been very disappointing to see the anger and the divisiveness from our school board publicly to us as parents. It's very disappointing to me.
Right.
Can I use Jeremy's time?
Yeah, he was next to speak.
Okay.
So.
The school board is elected. You all asked to be part of this, and you asked people in your community to vote for you to be part of this. And then we as parents show up and we say, hey, we're concerned about this issue. Hey, we think this is a big deal. And I have to agree with Angela. I personally have had people try to create issues with me in my workplace. I've personally seen the mocking that was done in front of children and heard people laugh at us when we make comments. It's inappropriate. I work in a professional area too, folks. That's not appropriate. We don't do that as adults, and you definitely don't do that as elected officials. So all of you here who don't normally come to school board meetings, I would encourage you to start coming. Don't be like me and wait till your kids are older. Start coming, get involved, and it's time to take the garbage out. They need to go, and we need to get people in here who actually want to do something to support our children and to support us as parents.
All I needed 30 seconds, that's it. I just want to remind you guys that I stood in front of you, I don't know how long ago, and I told you that I was praying for all of you because this is when it was starting. And I meant that, and I have been. Not happy, but I'm praying. And I told you, if you remember, I said that all of you have come to this place in this time. I believe, most of us here are probably Christians, for a reason. God has brought you here for this reason in this time. It breaks my heart to say this. You have failed to stand up. I know it's hard. I've almost lost my job because of what I had done. I know it's hard. I know. So I implore you. My dad taught me it's never too late to do the right thing. Please. I don't hate any one of you at all. I pray tonight that everybody would keep their lid on, because that's how things get accomplished. But you gotta stand up. You'll regret it if you don't. It may be too late. I don't know.
Vicky Rudy.
Hi, I just have a couple short comments. When the email came home to our homes from the school, it was confusing to us. And Today, when the kids went to school, there were kids with masks and kids without masks. And the kids are confused. They don't know what they're supposed to do anymore because of that. And I hope that when this decision is made, that the decision will go out to all of us so that the kids can understand what this is all about and what they need to be doing.
Brandy Crispin.
My name is Brandy Crispin. I'm not a public speaker. I'm also not a doctor, a lawyer, or a scientist. So I am not going to get into the legalities of this matter or weigh in on the actual ineffectiveness of the masks or how detrimental they are for our kids physically, mentally, and developmentally. But I am a mother. I'm a very concerned mother. And that's why I'm here today, to advocate for my children and to be their voice. My kids are 7 and 8, and they want to be here tonight. They want to be heard. So I am speaking for them. They ask me constantly, when is this going to stop? When is our school going to go back to normal? When are we going to be able to stop wearing masks in school? And I can't answer that for them, because that decision has been taken out of my hands as a parent, and it has been put in yours. So I am asking you tonight, when is enough enough? After 697 days, after a judge and all of his legal expertise has deemed these mask mandates null and void, after over 230 schools and counting in our state, and 41 entire states have done away with these mask mandates, if not now, when is it going to be the time for this board to put the best interests of our children first and stop subjecting them to wearing this mask for 7 hours a day? What more is it going to take for you to respect our freedom as parents and to restore normalcy back to our children's lives? If not now, then when? When is it going to be? Every family's choice on mask should be respected, and this board should give the parents back the right to make those decisions for themselves. I want to be able to see my kids' smiling faces when they walk out to the car. I did not send my children to school with masks on Monday, and let me tell you, I cried when I came out and saw they still did not have masks on, and I could see their faces and see them beaming and see them smiling. And that is what is important here. Those 2 kids right there. And I would like to be able to leave this meeting showing them that our voices can make a difference and that individuals can create change. So please consider them and the other 3,140 children's lives that you are impacting tonight and choose to let them breathe. Please answer tonight as to when this will end for the children in this district. And I would also like to say that if you are indeed representing the parents' wishes, I have yet to see one person stand up here and ask for their children to be masked. So why? Why are we continuing to do this?
I have received no other slips from anybody. Did I miss anybody? Y'all turned them in? Okay. Thank you.
Moving on to item 3, the consent agenda for board action. Before we move on, I would like to table 3.3, approval of board policies. I'd like to pull it off of the agenda. So I need a second by John Hedges. Right, I said board policy 660. Yeah, pull 660 off of the agenda. We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Right, and we'll vote on that or discuss that in a few minutes.
Or inform us what.
660 is the sex education bill. Well, we're going to discuss it here in just a minute. Just give us a second to get to it. So I need a motion. I'm going to have item 3.1, approval of minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, I need a vote. Should I do a roll call? We need a roll call vote, please.
Overton? Yes. Braun? Yes. Hedges? Yes. Weeks? Larson? Yes. Okay, Weaver? Yes. Kepley?
Yes.
Gilmore?
Yes. Thank you. So now we will move on to 3.1 approval of minutes. 3.1A regular board meeting, January 11th, 2022. 3.1B executive session meeting, January 11th, 2022. Item 3.2 financial payment of bills. Excuse me. 3.2A presentation of bills for approval. 3.2B monthly financial reports by fund. 3.2C budget to actual report. 3.4 enrollment report. 3.5 freedom of information report. I need a motion and a second. Motion by Ashley, second by, did you say Susie?
No, I think it's over here.
Erica, I'm sorry. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I need a roll call vote.
Kepley?
Yes.
Overton? Yes. Braun? Yes. Hedges? Yes. Weaver? Yes. Larson? Yes. Gilmore?
Yes. Item 3.3, I asked for that to be pulled off. And under advisement, since that's not going to take effect and we need some more information and clarification, I would like to make a motion to table that until the later date when we have all that information. Second? Erica, are there any questions or comments?
So, just to clarify, so we'll address that next month, or is it undecided? When will it?
I would suggest that we table that until the board feels comfortable bringing that back for action.
Okay, that was not my understanding.
So the motion would be to table that board policy 660. And then what the board would then do is come back and take a look at that, amending what they choose to see included in that in the future. So there are other items within board policy 660 that I think that the board will want to include because the sex ed piece is not the sole piece in there. It's the whole entire curriculum and programming. So I think that at that point, when we can share that with the board, and the board is okay with all of that information, that's when the board would want to bring that back for discussion and action.
When do you expect the amendments, are they like gonna be soon, or?
I do not expect that probably before next month. No, I do not. And we're still awaiting information from the State Board of Education around that. So that's a part of why this may be too soon to be able to conduct this meeting.
Okay, so then, when does it have to be voted on?
Currently, I believe it states August 1st.
For use in coming school year, or?
That I'd have to look into, Susie. I think it's August 1st was the deadline in which we, I believe was included in that. So I'd have to go back and refer to that.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, this will allow us to look at the other pieces in 660 and approve them. But we could also then take the sex ed piece and not approve it, correct?
Correct. It would be the opportunity for the board to say, we want these pieces included in 660 and these pieces removed at a future time, not right.
I'm sorry, that kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I would like to change that when I said to table it. You said till the board felt comfortable, and I think the board feels comfortable to vote tonight on that, and then we can bring that back up at a later date if necessary. So I would like to change my motion to delete item number 660 off of our policies.
I just have a question. It sounds like in the future, we possibly could approve pieces and then vote against other pieces. So since
That's what I was just saying. Yeah, I was suggesting that my motion would read on item 3.3, item 660 that I had pulled from the policies, that we go ahead and vote to delete that, and then possibly at a later date, we could address those if necessary. But I think it's important that we
But not
delete.
delete the total 660.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Pull the 660, take it off. So my motion is to delete it for now. Hold on.
We do have our school board attorney here, Brandon Wright. Brandon, would you like to add into any information around deleting this or tabling this?
One, I just think procedurally, you have other policies other than 660 that you want to approve. And you pulled that all off the consent agenda and it wasn't included. So you want to make sure you're still doing that for all the other remaining policies other than 660 procedurally. Because I didn't catch that in the motion, the rest of them. The other thing is 660 is your entire curriculum. So if you delete 660, then the district would have no curriculum whatsoever. You wouldn't have math, you wouldn't have English, you wouldn't have anything. So I think that you don't want to delete 660, you want to maintain your current 660, what I think you intend, and not add the new pieces to it that are coming. Is
I don't
that,
want to vote on that.
yeah, you don't want the update, but the existing 660, I guess that's my question to make sure that we understand that.
Specifically the sex education part. You have my word as a board member, I will not be voting for sex education and teaching masturbation or anything of the such in the school. Move on. Okay?
So I'm trying to come to a way. Item 3.3 was approval of board policies. Taking 660 off of that. I can figure a way to word this. We pulled 660 off of the board policies.
We have a motion. We have a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Table 660 until further discussion and research.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion to table 660, but to approve the rest of the board policies. And I need a second by Ashley Overton. And I concur with what John said earlier. I think if you look around the table, you can see a lot of heads shaking. So, Krista, will you call roll on 3.3?
Hedges?
Yes.
Weaver? Larson? Yes. Kemp?
Yes.
Overton? Yes. Brunt? Yes. Skilling?
Yes. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry that took a while for me to figure a way to say that without getting rid of all the other policies. Item 4, under new business, board discussion and action on district COVID-19 mitigation plan. This is going to be turned over to Tim, and I just wish we could have moved this up a little bit before everybody started speaking, but here we go.
Well, thank you. And the board has before them the presentation that is going to outline kind of the history of where we've been as a board, the current status as it relates to our mitigation plan, and board options and implications for each option. And then it will be up to the board to then determine what the motion would be around those options as well as board action. So moving into that third slide, we're talking a little bit about where this all started. And some of you were at this board meeting in July where the board acted upon the resolution. Actually, this board unanimously voted for this resolution to send a request to the governor's office to issue immediate guidance as it pertains to the decisions regarding the implementation of mitigation measures, including the use of face coverings and social distancing practices. And they are to be developed and implemented at the exclusive discretion of local school boards and superintendents in consultation with local public health departments based upon local geographical and student and staff COVID-19 vaccination and transmission data. So this is back in July, which seems like ages ago. The next slide was, as Mr. Harmonson pointed out, in August 4th, the governor issued Executive Order 85. At that point, the resolution that came from the governor's office included decisions regarding the implementation of COVID-19 mitigation measures where face coverings were then required or mandated. The next piece came the following week when August 10th was the regular scheduled board meeting in which President Skinlow called for a special board meeting to convene on that Friday, August 13th, to discuss the possible action of COVID mitigation strategies. Then on that special meeting, the board will recall that they voted to maintain compliance with that Executive Order 85 to require face coverings at that time. That was also the first student attendance day of this school year. So moving into October, the board was made aware that the district was named in the litigation, the Austin versus Pritzker litigation, and face coverings and exclusions for close contact remain in effect. Then February 4th, this past Friday, the court ruled to issue the temporary restraining order. And the named plaintiffs that received the temporary order, the district complied with that court order beginning on Monday, the 7th. And only named plaintiffs were required to wear face coverings or exclusions from school due to close contact. Then tonight, we arrive at the Board of Education meeting again to consider the options and discuss what the board would like to do to move forward. So the current status throughout this process, the board has maintained compliance with executive orders, court rulings, and both Illinois State Board of Education and Illinois Department of Public Health guidance. Currently, case law prevents mask and isolation requirements for those that were issued the temporary restraining order. And the appellate decision is anticipated by next Wednesday, the 16th. So that's where we currently sit. So now I'd like to share with the board 3 potential options. The first of them being maintaining status quo and requiring masks for all except for those that were listed as plaintiffs, then follow the appellate ruling. To walk through the action of that, we continue the compliance of temporary restraining order for the Austin versus Pritzker litigation, which is only named plaintiffs not required to wear face coverings. All other students and staff continue the requirement for face coverings. And only COVID positive cases are excluded from school unless otherwise directed by our local health department. The timeline on that would be dependent upon the appellate court ruling and that decision, whether that holds or whether that's reversed. The implications that are included with option 1, the confusion regarding how surrounding school districts are interpreting the ruling, as was mentioned earlier, and the management of students and families who interpret the ruling differently and choose not to wear masks. Option 2, temporarily pause the mask requirement for all and then follow the appellate court ruling. The action included here would be the continued compliance of the temporary restraining order, and only COVID positive cases are excluded from school. Mask recommended but not required for all students and staff. The timeline would be to pause the mask requirement beginning tomorrow until the appellate court ruling. If the appellate court rules to reverse the temporary order, the return to required masking for all students and staff. The implications of this option include non-compliance with ISBE guidance, non-compliance with legal counsel, the lack of protection for our educational staff, potential implications for protected classes of students, and confusion in the event of an appellate court reversal. The third option would be to recommend but not require masks for all, then discuss options at an upcoming meeting. The action would be mask recommended, not required for all students and staff. Only COVID positive cases, again, are excluded unless otherwise directed by the health department. The timeline would be beginning tomorrow. Masks are recommended but not required for all students and staff. If the appellate court rules to reverse the temporary order, The board will consider options at a future board meeting. The implications again include non-compliance with Illinois State Board of Education, non-compliance with legal counsel, the lack of protection for educational staff, potential implications for protected classes of students, and confusion in the event of an appellate court ruling. Finally, to walk the board through how they can make this decision, it's recommended that the board discuss these options. And again, this would be the board's discussion of these options to make a motion and approve one of the three presented. Following a motion, there must be a second. After the second, the board then may discuss and ask questions. At the conclusion of the discussion, all members will be asked to vote via roll call, and the administrative team will work to carry out the board's recommendation. So I would open this up to the board's discussion.
Okay, Ashley, in order to comply with the Robert's Rules of Order, we'll have a motion and a second, and then board discussion. Ashley?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt option 3, recommend.
And John made that second. So before we vote, we do have time for board discussion on this. I'd like to start by saying, Angela, I apologize if you thought that I was mocking you. I don't recall anything about that, but I am sorry if that was what you perceived. I just want people to know that the board has done a lot of research and studying before tonight's meeting, and that my decision is not based on what happened to me is bullying, threatening, harassment, messages till after 10 o'clock. So how I vote will be on my conviction, but not because somebody forced me to. Any other discussion?
Ashley, second what I said.
Oh,
I would like for you to all know that we knew from Brandon's expertise that there would be an appeal imminent. No matter which way the judge ruled, everybody knew, except maybe the public, that there was going to be an appeal. Oh, you did? Great, great, great. You see, I
This, even with the appellate decision, that means it'll be.
oh, I know.
Yeah.
And that's what concerns me so much. Even if, no matter how we vote tonight, we could be here again, over and over. Please understand that. Well, because of, go ahead, Mr. Sir. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jeremy?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, due process is due process. We will be here, but the law is the law. Now, you win, you lose. But as long as it's done the right way, me as an American, as a history guy, I have to live with that. But where we were, we won't be again. And if we are, we'll lose the law.
You all know then that buses, children who ride buses are required. Just for now, I'll give you that,
Okay.
I just want to make sure you all understand where I'm coming from, okay?
Okay, this is time for the board discussion. And I need for everybody to please be respectful so we can handle this the appropriate way and get to the end result.
I have concerns about staff, about the union. And that's all I have to say, so someone else.
I want to say something.
Okay.
So I'm 100% behind number 3. My question is, why the march? Why don't we just recommend masks and be done? Why do we have to come back?
Brandon, I'll defer a little bit to you here, but the idea behind the March option is it gets beyond the appellate court ruling, so we're not getting into that confusion. And again, that's up for the board to make that decision if they wish to do that. Brandon, would you like to add anything here?
I just think the key difference is that just means that future board meeting. I'm not saying you have to make a change in March, I'm saying that would be the next earliest time. Because I think the difference is, in the first two options, those motions would have said, depending on the appellate court ruling, then it would either automatically go back into effect or not. And I think with option 3, it's saying, we're not gonna have it automatically going back into effect, that the board could, if it chose to, depending upon where status it is at that point in time, revisit that decision or table it again, or not.
So my confusion is, if we don't know what happens in March, how do all these people know what happens in March? Are we coming back to vote again, make a discussion? I know you can't predict the future, but the lack of clarity creates a lot of confusion. And so the simpler we can be with the way that we communicate and vote, the easier it is for all of us, if that makes sense. And so if we're gonna vote again in March based on the appellate decision, that's gonna be clear in the board agenda, so the public knows that, once again, there's a vote. Is that how I'm understanding it?
The only reason there could not be a vote is if the board chooses to not revisit this and make a decision.
So to answer Dr. Larson's question about would the board have to come back in March to then act upon this? If my understanding would be if the board chooses to act upon option 3 this evening, it would stay into effect and the board could call it for action again in March if they wish to make a change to whatever is acted upon this evening.
So one of us board members, oh, sorry.
So one of us board members would have to request that to be put on the agenda. Is that what you're saying? Okay, thank you.
Otherwise, it remains the same.
Having heard all of that, I hope everybody understands that that does not mean we are coming back in March to vote. Definitely, it means that somebody could bring it up and ask for a vote. But right now, the motion is for option 3, recommended, not required. So, is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Okay, Krista, I would like to ask for a roll call vote on that, please.
Brun? No.
Vote on what?
Option 3.
Option 3.
And the reason is because I believe that we will get into an appellate mess, and there will be more confusion. I appreciate everything you said. I understand you, I agree with you, but I'm concerned about the appellate decision, and that is it. That's the only thing that is holding me up right now.
Krista, will you continue to call roll?
My vote is yes.
Weaver? No. Larson? Yes. Kepley?
Yes.
Overton? Yes. Kimball?
Yes.
There you go.
Moving on to item 5, reports and recommendations of the business manager, Mr. Sherman.
I was just gonna say, Tim, you might wanna mention to Randy that communication will go out tonight. I was just gonna.
Yes, Mrs. Crispin, you mentioned asking about communication going out. Actually, here following the board's action, we plan to share that out with staff and with families probably within the next half hour. So they will know that starting tomorrow, masks will be recommended based upon the board's action, and they are not required. So, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you asked that. So I apologize. Thank you, though.
I hope that some of you can stay and listen to the wonderful things that our district is doing. And I hope you will come back even though this issue is, I guess, off the table. But we have some exciting new things coming up this evening. So I'll pass this over to Mr. Sherman.
Okay, we got several things on the business side of things. If we could go ahead to the next slide. The first three items have to do with the high school. I'm going to stand by this slide instead of that one. The first one here, 5.1, board action to award the bid for the high school wood shop construction renovation. The three agenda items of 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3 all have to do with the high school. And we can go to the next one. We had a bid opening on February 1st for these things to take place at the wood shop renovation. This is renovating what we currently call the wood shop. That will turn into a sports complex center. And at the end of that building to the east that faces the football field, it would be extended and there would be restrooms built for the sports complex that's being renovated at the high school. You can see the site aerial plan, and obviously this is an old picture with the old football field and everything, but the building we're talking about is right here. This is gone, that's the bleachers and the press box, but we're talking about this building right here. This would be renovated and we would extend it out to the east for restrooms. This is a floor plan of that. These are the additions that I'm talking about, the restrooms here. There would be locker rooms for home and away, because currently our away teams that come for football get dressed kind of down underneath. Yeah, go back. Underneath the high school. Not a good place. The current weight room, which is now in the old sports center and in a different place in the high school, different places with that, we would have a weight room. We would have a wrestling dance room that could be converted so we could have mats in, mats off to take care of that. There are some places here for maintenance storage up here, maintenance storage over here, offices and conference rooms, and then again, like I said, the addition of the restrooms on the east side. This is a rendering of the Upchurch. Upchurch is our local architect. They come up with these drawings. This is looking at it from the north as you're looking to the building. This is looking at it from the south, if you're standing on the south side looking north. This is the east elevation. This would be the doors to the restrooms. This would be an overhead garage type door to get into the maintenance area. And then this is the west elevation if you're coming into it, like driving up from west to east, coming up towards the football field. This would be what it would look like from the west. White on top, green on the bottom. That's fine. Okay, this is kind of a neat idea here. This is a memorial area, and I'll show you an overview here in a minute. We want to incorporate this area with tile, brick, inlaid on the ground, so that we can honor those students that have served us in the armed forces over the course of all the years, and then also a place so that we can have a memorial area for students that have passed away for whatever reason that has been. Unfortunately, we've had several of those, and we wanted a place that we could commemorate those people, and also honor our staff members, or all of our service members that have done that. And there would be plaques up here. That's what these black plaques would be like Army, Navy, Air Force, and so on. So this is a drawing of what that would look like. So I'm standing on the north, I'm looking south, the football field's over here. This is an area, and we're protecting. This is a huge transformer, an electric transformer. Nothing magical about it. It's just a big electric box that we got to make sure nobody gets into. So that's why it's protected. We had three really good bids on this. You can see what those were. We had Christie Foltz out of Decatur, Grenlow out of Effingham, and then Walton Construction out of Effingham. You can see what the bids were, anywhere from $2.6 to $3 million of the three. The Upchurch group, along with the administrative team, recommends that we award the bid to Walton Construction at $2,635,000. You want to go on to the next slide. We've had questions in the past about how we're going to pay for this and where's the money coming from for all of these things. So this is a kind of an overview of everything we got going on. As Michelle said, there's a lot of things happening here in the school district. A lot of it going on at the high school, of course. Some of it is driven by grants and so on that I'll get into here in a second. But you can see the lift project that's across the street from the administrative office there at the 17th and Charleston Avenue. The expenses, the projected expenses are about $12.7 million. We took out $13 million in debt certificates that we'll receive in FY22. Our fiscal year ends on June 30th of this year, 2022. So 8.9 of the 13 million is going to that project. We have grants available, federal grants that are coming in at 3.8 to cover the remainder of that. So that is going to be covered, that project is going to be covered with debt certificates and grants, 12,750,000. The athletic piece, this is the high school football field, the track, the tennis court, the baseball field, the soccer field, all that area back in there. They're coming in at the expenses of a little bit shy of $5.4 million. Again, we had 13 million in debt certificates, 3.4 of the 13 million is paying for that project. This 2 million is a grant from the state. We do not have to pay that back. That is a grant that we were able to obtain from the state that we let everybody know, made that public about a year ago now. So this is the revenue for that project. The sports center, this is the one we're talking about right now. The expenses, if you choose to award this, $2.6 million. We will use sales tax money from 22, sales tax money from 23, part of the sales tax money to pay for that. So that will be paid for with county school facilities tax. That's our tax rate. Don't touch. Okay. So, the sales tax money, the reason I have it divided up into 2 years is again because we have a fiscal year that ends on June 30th. The next fiscal year starts July 1st. Some of the money that will be coming is between now and June. The remainder of it is after July. That project, we're not going to have to spend all of the money before June 30th. That's why we're able to carry it over and use some of the revenue out of next fiscal year for that. A couple other projects that we're going to be talking about tonight here in a little bit is the 400 wing and the greenhouse, and I'll get into that in a minute. The expenses here, debt certificates, $500,000. Sales tax money in this current fiscal year, $485,000. That'll cover the expenses for the greenhouse and the 400 wing. And again, I'll get into that in a minute. The parking lot at the sports piece, if you know anything, if you've ever been to a football game, the sports lot for the athletes, most of the athletes park just to the north of the football field, northwest sort of the football field. We have a projection that that'll probably cost about $500,000. That'll come out of revenue starting July 1st out of sales tax money because that will not be completed before June 30th. Another thing we're going to get into tonight is parking lot southeast of the football field, or southwest of the football field, southeast of the high school. Again, it's projected that that'll be about $500,000, and that'll be sales tax money as well. So you can see the expenses for the big projects that we have, the revenues that we're looking to pay for all of these. So you can go. Okay, yeah, just go back up to the next, go up one, the other way. One more. Okay, so the motion for 5.1 is we're asking permission to award the bid to Walton Construction for $2.6 million.
Motion by Gary, a second by Susan. Are there any questions or comments? As I said, there's exciting things coming up in our school district, so drop mic. Can you call roll, please? Hedges?
Yes.
Weaver? Yes. Larson?
Yes.
Kepley?
Yes.
Overton? Yes. Braun?
Yes.
Scanlon? Yes.
Okay, 5.2, since we're moving stuff from that building, the wood shop area, we have to have those classes go somewhere, so where are those classes going to go? We're going to renovate the 400 wing of the high school. And go ahead and hit the next thing. This particular motion or action item is just to get permission to bid this out. Okay, but I want to go over what we're talking about. But all we're doing tonight is getting board's permission to bid it out. So at the March board meeting, hopefully we'll have bids and be able to award that at the March. That's what that bullet is. This involves renovation of the 400 wing, as well as removing and relocating the greenhouse. So here, okay? So this is the greenhouse. Again, we're gonna eliminate this. Don't touch. Don't touch it. Yeah, I guess I'm too staticky or something. Okay, so we're gonna eliminate this. We're gonna move the greenhouse. Ag is a great program that we have at the high school. We're gonna look about doing some other things that Christy will get into later on. But we're gonna relocate that. This will be changed. This is the 400 wing. This whole big thing. Okay? All right, so that whole big thing that I just was pointing to a minute ago, this is what we're looking about redoing. We were going to put building trades into that area. We're going to put maintenance and receiving there. It's hard to get close to it without touching it. Ag will go in here. That's a little bit different than we've had in the past. Used to be ag was more over here. We're moving that over a little bit. The wood shop will now be down here. Okay, on the south side of the 400 wing. We'll still have some classes here, and you can see some different things there. So we are not eliminating any programs at all. In actuality, we're moving things around. Okay?
Where's the band gonna go?
The band's not moving.
Yeah, band will stay where it's at.
And graphic art.
That,
Very good.
it's not moving here. So what he's
Right,
showing
right.
you is like this, that diagram is for this much of the 400
Yeah.
weeks. If you guys are talking about this. much.
Yeah, this part's,
Like they were gonna wood shop.
We're gonna build their future.
yeah. That's a whole nother class. Okay. All right, so we're gonna move the greenhouse from where it's currently at to the courtyard. This is the south courtyard, okay? This is a hallway. You can't see it very good because this is a new addition. This is a hallway where we're gonna put the greenhouse inside the courtyard. Okay? It's gonna be just a little bit smaller, but we've had requests from the program to make it that way so it's more usable. It also helps us use up space. Okay, so again, we're moving from here, putting it over there. Next slide. This is a proposed greenhouse. This will be part of the bid. This is kind of the drawing of it. Again, it's kind of good. It's going to look the same as what the current greenhouse looks with the peaked roof, the louvers that are on the side, so you get the ventilation going that you need to have. The tables that are placed here, basically the same kind of thing that we have right now with the current greenhouse, but it'll be placed in the courtyard area and just a little bit smaller. Okay. So we recommend that the board give us permission to solicit bids for the renovation of the 400 wing as presented.
Motion. Second. Motion by Susan and second by Erica. Are there any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. Okay, 5.3, this kind of gets into 5.3, but I wanted to show you this with things moving now. So now we've talked about removing the sports center. We've talked about adding on the sports center. So here's the football field. Here's the track. This is the sports center lot. This is a concession stand. This is a pavilion. You know, you eat at the concession stand and get your food and go that way. We are planning on moving the entrance to that area down by the parking lot more to alleviate some congestion, to help it so that when you walk in, you get more of a aesthetic view of everything. This is that memorial area that I was talking about. And the parking lot's up here. We're hoping that we might be able to turn this maybe into like a tailgating area up here where the parking lot is. The parking lot that you'll see here in a minute that we're talking about is all of this. This is the new sports center with the addition, and the 400 stuff is up here now for the wood shop and all of that.
Tom, where are we gonna hopefully put the new entrance? I missed that.
Straight south in the middle of the sports lot.
Okay.
Instead of it being up here in the southwest corner, it'll go through these like pillars or through the
Okay.
on the side.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay? So I'm asking for permission, 5.3, permission to bid the parking lot behind the high school. There's a lot of work going on out there, obviously, that we've been talking about all this time. Go ahead, click the next one. We need to renovate that southeast area so that we can do the parking. Right now, it's torn up pretty good, and it's gonna get torn up even more. And it will be really nice by the time we get it all done, which we're hoping will be like first home football game sort. That's the plan.
Okay, I need a motion and a second by Ashley and, a motion by Weaver and a second by Ashley. Sorry. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so this is the parking lot we're talking about here, is that area. And that'll all be, this will be gone, that'll be gone, this will be extended, this is gone. So that will look really good. The last thing that I have, again, is we from time to time declare items surplus, we don't need them anymore. And obviously, if we're gonna be removing the greenhouse, we just don't wanna, tear it up from the trash can, if you could. What we would like to do is make that available for anybody that wants to have a greenhouse, buy the greenhouse from us, okay? So we have to declare that as surplus though, we just can't, put it out by the street and have somebody pick it up. So that's what this 5.4 is, to have board action to declare surplus materials for sale, specifically the high school greenhouse.
Motion by Erica, second by Susan. And they do have to come and pick it up.
Yes. Yes, yes. I am not tearing down a greenhouse, yes.
Tom, will you share, there'll be some additional information if people are
Yeah, if people are interested in that, please contact me at the board office. There'll be some more information. That needs to be out by June 1st. Obviously, we're under a tight timeline, so they can, contact me and we'll make arrangements and go from there. So if you know anybody that's interested in a greenhouse, have them call me, okay, or email me or whatever.
And it'll be on our website, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah, it'll be on our website about that as well.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 6. Reports and recommendations of the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resource, Dr. Stocy.
Okay, Tom, I'll try not to touch the screen. All right, board has before them the personnel report for February. As we move forward, we have some certified resignations. Jacob Bryman resigns as Matthew Middle School Dean of Students effective the end of the 21-22 school year. Then we have Tracy Perry who's going to be retiring as Franklin Preschool Social Worker effective the end of the 26-27 year. At that time, she will have served the district and our students 24 years. So we're excited about her service. Exciting some new appointments here, recommendations to be appointed. Tanya Ike, recommended as Mattoon High School Ag Teacher effective for the 22-23 school year. Jacob Ryman as Industrial Arts Teacher effective for the middle school for the 22-23 school year. Nicole Logan, Mattoon High School Science Teacher effective 22-23 school year. Jacob Perry, Mattoon High School Graduate, recommending for High School Science Teacher effective for the 22-23 school year. Elsie Shaw, recommending for High School Special Ed Teacher effective for the 22-23 school year. As we continue, Hannah Spain, recommending as an additional Mattoon High School Ag Teacher effective for 22-23 school year. Sydney Zumbalan, recommending as Mattoon Middle School High School Band Teacher, 22-23 school year. Heidi Saunders recommending as substitute teacher. Some classified resignations. Lori Collins, longtime paraprofessional in our district, is retiring the end of the 21-20 school year. She's done an excellent job running the district for 13 years. Happy for her. Here's a special one on classified resignation. Jeff Jean. Jeff Jean's a longtime custodian, Riddle Elementary School here. He's been in the district for over 26 years, started in 1996. So he's kept this building great. A wonderful individual that you get to see Jeff Jean. Tell him thank you for his service. And then we have some, again, resignations. Supervisor Mr. Borden's done a great job resigning, and then Carrie Prisino resigning effectively in those positions. Last, some classified appointments as we move forward. Carrie Kiefer, Williams Elementary School parapro. Michael Morton is a sub-supervisor. Paul Weber as substitute bus driver and custodian effective immediately. And in addition to that, we have an addendum, some classified resignations. Lindsay Hook, Rural Elementary School paraprofessional effective the 21-22 school year. And then we have some employments here. Lisa Hartley Rowe is Rural Elementary School supervisor effective immediately. And then Helen Helderson is supervisor effective immediately. Any questions? Seeing none, then I recommend the Board of Education accept the personnel report as presented.
May I have a motion by Ashley, second by John Hedges. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, will you call roll? Overton? Yes. Braun? Yes. Hedges?
Yes.
Weaver? Yes. Larson? Yes. Heffley?
Yes.
Skidlow? Yes.
42 of the vacancies for next year, there are 42 vacancies, 31 of them have been filled, so our 25% already. So it's a good number for us to track and well.
Item 7, reports and recommendations to the assistant.
Are you gonna make Maggie do it?
Assistant Superintendent for Student Services. Dr. Hill, you are up.
Thank you. All right. Well, when Michelle was talking about exciting stuff earlier, I know she was talking not just about Toms and Daves, but this also. Really, really thankful tonight to have the opportunity to come before the board on several items. I have them kind of outlined here for you. I'm going to try to see if I can just use this. So 7.1, we're going to talk about expanded ag programming for our littlest and our middle school kids. 7.2, we will move forward. Come on. There we go. And we'll be asking for permission to solicit bids for a middle school greenhouse, and we're going to talk about that. In 7.3 and 7.4, there'll be no action tonight, but I'm going to present some curriculum for the board to take the next month to review, ask questions, and then as we come back in March, we'll request action on some curricular additions. And then in 7.4, we're going to talk about the Capstone courses at Mattoon High School. And I'm going to ask for action to approve a process for approving Capstone courses. And I'll talk about what all that means. So let's jump in with ag programming. Just want to remind, actually this is a great opportunity to share with so many guests tonight. Our driving 3 factors since 2017-18 have been expanding opportunities for all kids. So looking at a wide array of opportunities, increasing personalization through interests, strengths, and pace of learning. And finally, expanding learning beyond the classroom. So how can we get kids serving in our community and connecting with employers and people in our region? So those 3 things really underlie a lot of the work that we've been doing over the past 3 to 4 years at the district level and also in all of our amazing buildings. So it's with that in mind tonight that we're going to talk to you first about a proposal to increase our agricultural programming. So why would we do that? Well, in 2018, Mattoon in Motion did an analysis, a strengths analysis of our region. And what are we rich in? What are our largest assets? And they talked about lots of things. One being healthcare, another being education, and a third being agriculture. So really leaning into the strengths of our region and figuring out how to expand opportunities for kids to engage in those agricultural fields early and often. Because ag is more than farming, right? It absolutely is farming, but it's also business and marketing and communications and food processing and all kinds of things. So we want to help kids see all of the opportunities that ag can provide. So when we think about expanding programs, we ask ourselves, what does a successful program look like? And research will tell us there are some key characteristics. Early involvement. The sooner kids get connected to things, the more likely they are to find strengths, find a stride, whether that's baseball or it's gardening, right? The earlier and the more often, the higher likelihood of success. When we have a clear pathway, when there's hands-on experiences, when kids can connect with other kids, when they have relationships with mentors, when there's passionate facilitators and external partners. And when you talk about ag and external partners, we are abundant. It has been amazing. Just even suggesting this, I've had numerous calls and emails about ways to get involved. So that's really exciting. We have a really strong ag program at the high school, for those of you who might not know that. I know the board is very familiar, but just a refresher. Fall of 2007, we expanded the program, and that's when we built that greenhouse. And if you haven't been back there, it's a wonderful greenhouse. It is nearing the end of its life. So the panels are needing to be replaced. And with our current athletic renovation, this seems like a good opportunity to take advantage of upgrading that. We have a very active and extremely successful FFA chapter at the high school. We have robust course offerings, so kids can take all kinds of ag classes, including career exploration as a freshman. There's an ag science class, ag mechanics 1 and 2. We have supervised ag experiences, which are kind of like independent studies where they can pursue an area of interest. And then we have plant and animal science courses. So we're proposing adding on to that. And if you think back to the slide about successful programs, early and explore. So in 6th grade, we're proposing adding a required essential course and infusing ag into our science classes. In 7th grade, we're looking at an elective essential class. So in 7th grade, their essential classes are a quarter long. So students in 6th grade get to try everything. And then in 7th grade, they pick their favorite 4, and they spend about 9 weeks in each of those areas. That's going to be fruits and vegetables, like crops. And if you know Kim McQueen, our 7th grade math teacher, she is all over this and super excited to be the passionate facilitator and mentor for that program. 8th grade, we're going to explore a semester-long essential kids can pick from, and this will blend chemistry and life science as we look at aquaponics opportunities with tilapia, also some cross teaching with facts. So we're going to be using some of those crops in our facts class. And then we're also going to invite our preschoolers to be a formal part of the programming here as well, with potentially a Clover Buds chapter of the FFA, and then engaging with some middle school mentors. So we already have great adults who are all about this, and I'll share that slide shortly, but this is really exciting. If the board approves this expansion, we're talking about impacting almost 1,000 students, giving that many kids, 1/3 of our district population, an opportunity to grow, to be in a greenhouse, to be developing projects and really exploring careers in ag. Another opportunity is extracurriculars. So when we talk about expanding opportunities for all kids, some students really find their club here. They find themselves in an FFA chapter. This also increases high school student outcomes. So if kids start their book at 6th grade, they can work all the way through high school, which is really an advantage. So in Tom's presentation, he talked about moving or relocating the high school greenhouse. The second piece of that would be to build a greenhouse here on the middle school campus. Dustin Stolfus, our maintenance director, helped us kind of really flesh out what are all of the options and where could it be most effective for student use and also from an economic standpoint. And we feel like this placement makes a lot of sense. The total square footage of the greenhouse would be slightly more than what we currently have. It would be in 2 locations, and it would serve 1,000 more students. All for about the same price. We think, we obviously don't have bids, but early estimates are that it would be around the same price as the one greenhouse was in 2007. So what are the next steps? Well, last week, CCC unanimously approved this, said yes, please take this to the board with our blessing and recommendation. And then tonight, we're going to ask for you to take action on 2 things. One is the programming. The other is giving us permission to solicit bids for that greenhouse. if all goes according to plan, next Tuesday, our planning team is gonna meet for a second time to start developing the course content. And then all spring, they're gonna do their scheduling and begin with the end in mind, and what are the learning outcomes. And, since Mr. Pugh first introduced this idea to the middle school teachers who were involved, he said that they are like nonstop texting him and emailing him, here's all these ideas, so they are really on fire about it. Our target would be to start this expanded programming with kids this coming fall at the middle school and preschool. I want to draw attention to the people who had a hand up to this point in offering feedback and sitting in on those conversations. You can see, Ashley from a board perspective, Candace Overton and Kendall Kaufman, some of our parents and 4-H leaders, Carl Rady, our high school ag teacher, and then some of our administrators, Mrs. McQueen, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Fryman, and Mrs. Titus at Franklin Preschool, all had a hand in, you just toss an idea out there and suddenly they have a million better ideas. So thanks to them. Are there any questions or comments from the board? I guess we probably have to have a motion in a second and then discussion. So the recommended action is to approve the expanded agricultural programming as presented.
I have a motion by Erica, I need a second by Ashley. Any comments or questions? I just think it's a phenomenal thing that we're doing for our students. So, not only as a board member, but as a farmer, it's awesome, super exciting. I would like a roll call vote on this, please. Larson? Yes. Kepley?
Yes.
Overton? Yes. Braun?
Yes.
Hedges?
Yes.
Weaver? Yes. Skidmore? Yes.
Thank you very, very, very much. Really, yes, that's so exciting. Yeah. Okay, so the second piece of the agricultural expansion is permission to solicit bids for the MMS greenhouse. As I previously stated, we have some early estimates on cost. It fits well within the slide Tom presented in his part of tonight's meeting in terms of overall budgeting. But at this time, we're just asking permission to seek bids.
Sure. I need a motion by Erica and a second by John Hedges. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you once again. All right, well, we're not done, we're gonna keep rolling. So we have been hard at work this year, really digging into our curriculum, what we're teaching students, how we're measuring their success, what our expected outcomes are. And so tonight I'm gonna present some updates, I'm gonna give you some information, and then we'll have the month to visit if you have questions, you wanna see anything, and then next month they'll be on the consent agenda for action. So 2 update topics. The first are some content maps, and the second are some courses at Mattoon High School. So to begin with the content maps, this is really small font, so I have paper copies that I'm gonna ask you guys to pass around if you don't mind. Thank you. What these documents represent, I'll just pull one up. I'll pull the map one up, it's kind of easiest to see. These documents represent an articulated progression of learning for students in Mattoon schools from the time they start with us in kindergarten until the time they are considered high school graduates. This is a monumental amount of work that was done by, I think I put on one of the slides, 82 staff members participated in this. But just to give you a brief overview, and then again, you have a month to kind of look at it. What you're gonna see are numbered topics. Okay, ELA is actually not the greatest one to start with, but ELA is always the troubled child. But essentially, each of these topics represents important outcomes for student learning. And we have what we used to know as a rubric. We have a proficiency scale designed for every single one of these, K through 12, that describes the outcomes for students. So what we're gonna be asking the board to approve next month are these topics. Okay, so you're just gonna look over it. And again, you're probably gonna have questions, which is why we wanna have a month between. Feel free to call and we will talk about whatever you'd like and I can explain it more in depth. But essentially, we took our state standards, we analyzed that with what we're currently teaching and what's locally important in our community. And we organized the learning from, again, the very first thing to learn in kindergarten, categorical data, all the way to the last required scale of required high school math. So I'm not gonna go through all those in depth tonight, but they are there for you. You have them electronically as well. And I would just encourage you to reach out if you have any questions. The second piece of the curricular updates, I am gonna spend a little bit more time talking about because they are course additions. These were also approved by the CCC last week. So they're recommending to the board that these course additions are added. So at the high school, we're proposing adding a literacy leadership course and a numeracy leadership course. Let me tell you what that means. This is kind of a text-rich slide, but essentially, you think about a continuum of services for students. We want to make sure we are providing enough support for students in all areas. So we found a need for some additional time rather than replaced time as it comes to math and English or reading. So rather than taking students out of a math class to help them, we're proposing adding an elective or an optional course in literacy and numeracy that students would take in addition to their math or reading class where they could still earn a credit. This started as a solution to a continuum of services for special education students. However, we are proposing that this is a course that other students could opt in to take. It's not a special ed class per se. So those of you who have been here for a while will be familiar with the study skills class at Mattoon High School. This is an evolved version of how do we help students navigate their math and English language arts reading. So you can kind of see that continuum of services there. The proposed addition is the literacy or numeracy course. They will get credit for that, yes. So the state course codes allow us to offer credit. So these are the state course codes we would apply. It's a supplemental math or supplemental English class. So students will get a credit for that. And it will be a personalized class. So when I come, I'm gonna get help on what I need help on as it relates to math or reading. Erica? Yes, sorry, we have a bad habit of that. CCC is the Curriculum Coordinating Committee. It's a governing structure in our district that helps us just manage curricular recommendations. Thank you. So here's the really exciting part about the literacy and numeracy leadership classes. Students' grades will be based on adaptive scales. So we already know math is hard for these students and not for this math help class. So rather than grade them on the math, we're going to be grading them on these adaptive life-ready skills that our business community told us are lacking most. And so we figured out a way to take these grades, and the course requirements are all here for the board to review over the next month and as well. So you can ask me if you have any questions. The other course that we're updating, I think I saw Mrs. Roberts here. Yes, hello, Laura, thank you. So graphic arts, long-standing program at Mattoon High School. Gosh, I don't know how many years. Back to the 90s, because I was reviewing CCC minutes, and it was back there. Well, graphic arts has been graphic arts 1 and 2, and you'll see in our capstone, there's also advanced graphic arts that's on the books. But we're noticing things are changing. Kids' needs are changing, and the graphic art world is changing. So to be responsive to that, we're proposing renovating this curriculum to be an Adobe aligned credentialing program. So students will take this class called Visual Design, Foundations of Design and Print Production, and they will earn professional certificates in the Adobe Creative Suite. I'm not going to talk to this tonight. The board has it in front of them. Please, if you have questions over the next month, but you can see Mrs. Roberts has done a great job organizing what the first year would look like. I want to just draw your attention to the amount of choice students would have. Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator, Adobe InDesign, so there'd be a lot of options aligned to interest and strength. In all of that curriculum update, I want to just acknowledge the contributions of these key leaders. Again, 82 teachers work on that curriculum, but notably Rachel Stewart, Nikki Renshaw, Nicole Moss, and Tara Stewart are instructional coaches, or academic instructional coaches. They have done amazing work with that. Mrs. Fairchild and Mrs. Ruhal at the high school as well as Mrs. Roberts. So again, no action tonight, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have right now.
So this will be voted on next month.
Correct, this will be on the consent agenda next month. So I just encourage you, give me a call. We can talk about any of it between now and then.
Thank you. One more.
One more, yeah. Capstone. Okay, so this, I am going to ask action for this. So as we go, please ask questions. What we're going to look at is improving our Capstone course offerings at the high school. So what are Capstone classes? In Mattoon School District, Capstone classes are one component of the summa cum laude designation for graduates, okay? So the handbook language is here, but essentially kids have to take 9 of 19 courses, 19 and a half courses that are listed. That's one criteria. The other criteria for summa is they have to get straight A's in everything. A's in everything and 9 out of these listed classes. The proposal tonight is nothing to do with summa. We're not touching that. The proposal tonight is specifically about a capstone class. Like what are these 19 and a half? Okay, so this is the history. These courses traditionally have just been advanced sequence. They're kind of the terminal course of study. So it's the last 2 or the last 1 class you can take in a series of courses. There really was no other criteria outlined, which makes it a little challenging, right? As we're increasing opportunities for kids, how do we know if this is the same level of rigor? Should students be able to have this as a capstone? Are we potentially limiting opportunities if we don't? So we decided, let's formalize some criteria. That's what tonight is about. These are the current capstone classes. So you can see this column, those are the prereqs. So you have honors band 1 and 2. Honors band 3 and 4 are considered capstone classes. Okay, and why? Well, because they're the last in the sequence. We have world cultures as a prereq to honors American history or Lakeland government dual credit. So these are the courses that kids have to choose from if they want to be eligible to be summa cum laude. Because we're about expanding opportunities for kids, we wondered if this was all inclusive, right? Or if students might want to take something that's not on this list and they choose not to because they want that summa designation. That's in conflict with our supposed values. We say we want kids to pursue interests. We got to make sure we don't have barriers, right? So these are the current enrollment numbers. Like how many kids are taking honors graphic arts? Mrs. Roberts, she's revising her course, 8. Or, we said honors calculus is a capstone. We don't have any kids enrolled in that right now. Or physics, very few students. Okay, so again, just collecting some data to help us think through what might this process look like. So what we're going to propose moving forward is a process. And the first thing is we're not going to take away capstone course designation from anything. If you're a capstone course, you're a capstone course. That decision was made before we were ever here, and we're standing on the shoulders of that greatness. What we are going to do is open up the opportunity for high school courses to be considered as capstone if they meet some rigorous criteria. And that's what I have listed here. 4 things. 1, does it require advanced or terminal study, either in a professional field or for college track? Are at least half of the assessments complex cognitively, like are kids engaging in rigorous work? Does the course include authentic work or domain-specific technology? So Mrs. Roberts' course with Adobe certifications is a perfect example. That's domain-specific. That's getting them ready for a career. And finally, does the course require students to participate in content and experiences that matter beyond Mattoon High School? Okay, so faculty and students will have the opportunity to complete this form and say, I would like this course to be considered as a capstone course. Those recommendations will go to the Curriculum Coordinating Council annually for review, and then they will make a recommendation to the board. So that is our proposed process for capstone classes. Yes? Absolutely. Yeah. Your daughter is the poster child for why we need to change the way that it is. And I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes. Yes. So actually a current student wanted to take a course that was aligned to interest in a career goal, and her exact words were, but I don't want to miss out on SUMA. That's not what we want high school to be about, right? So this is a way for us to find a path. And kudos to the Curriculum Coordinating Council. I think it was Katie Blomquist. Do you remember, Jody? There was a teacher on the CCC who made the recommendation, well, could a student, was it Katie? Could a student possibly propose and say, hey, I'm doing this and here's my evidence? Board members, you can look at the form. It requires the middle of evidence. So it required advanced study in a field, right, if she wanted to do something abroad. And so students then have that opportunity to justify their choices that are in alignment with the life that they want to have post-graduation without it being a choice. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So time to change. Yeah. Is it okay if we've got another question in the back? Go ahead. Yeah.
So based on this, when does that, become capstone course? My daughter was wanting to take, course with
Yeah.
building, but she's kind of up in the air because she doesn't want to do supervisor, she doesn't want to do supervisor, but you're saying annually they work.
Yes. So
Are you guys gonna go in and say, okay, we're gonna look at all these courses and get them all capstone approved, or is it gonna be year by year?
great question. So with LIFT specifically, we have our facilitators meeting weekly right now, almost weekly, and then bi-weekly starting in March to develop that curriculum. And this form is one of the things that they will be working on to see if CCC says, yes, your proposed curriculum meets these criteria. So that will be this spring. This CCC meeting in May will be the approved time, and then those will be eligible for the subsequent year. Yes, Jody.
It's not just that a student can fill out a form, but a teacher can do it.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Great clarification. So the student actually would be probably more retroactive, like I've taken this course and I want it to be considered. The faculty is going to do this in advance so that the courses can be considered that during registration. Good question, thank you. Any questions from the board, Erica?
Is there one, like, will there be a target number of courses that we want to look at for, capital approval consideration of the grade? Or is there a limited amount of classes, like, what is the goal this spring for CCC in terms of what will we review? Or will someone filter that before it gets to CCC? What will that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our immediately, we know many of the courses at Lyft, not all, but many are interested in that. And I know of 2 at the high school who are interested. Outside of that, we don't know yet. Yeah. Ashley, did you have a question
It
too?
was just regarding the list, but you
Okay.
answered it already.
Perfect. Well, if there aren't any other questions or comments, I would ask, I would recommend board approval of the Capstone course process as it was presented.
Second. Motion by Erica, second by Ashley. Are there any questions or comments?
I got a question.
Yeah.
It's more of a request. Can we put on the agenda for next month, please? We really look at, like, when I think of remedial work or like at this credit, how are we using those 20 minutes that we took out of instruction? What is the purpose? What's the goal of the high school? Because as we look at this content, that's a special part of the day that we could probably revisit, and I think it'd be helpful for us to.
Sure, I think that would be a great presentation. Yep, sure thing. And actually, that reminds me, I do have handouts for this, and then I think you and Erica asked about some data last month, and I have a handout for you with that data.
Okay, I need a roll call vote, please. Kathleen?
Yes.
Overton? Yes. Braun? Yes. Hedges?
Yes.
Weaver? Yes. Larson? Yes. Skillo? Yes.
Tom gets applause.
I don't know. Okay, Jim, you don't have anything to say? Okay, there are no recommendations at this time of the superintendent or other district personnel. We haven't any unfinished business. We are going into executive session at 8:42 to discuss matters pertaining to the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees. 11.2, discuss matters pertaining to the sale and purchase of property. 11.3, evidence or testimony presented in open hearing or a closed hearing when specifically authorized by quasi-adjudicative body pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2, as defined in Acts 24:24, provided the body prepares and makes available for public inspection, and written decision setting forth its determinative reasoning. And aren't you glad I had that to read? I had a motion by Erica. Second by Ashley. Would you call roll? Overton? Yes. Braun? Yes. Hedges?
Yes.
Weaver? Yes. Larson? Yes. Kathleen?
Yes.
Skillo? Yes.
I would ask if there is anyone in the audience that is here for the closed session hearing to please come and see President Skinlow or myself before we go into executive session. And there will be action that occurs after executive session this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. Drive safely.